What happens when one of the most talented game designers in the industry gathers a team of equally talented developers and starts working on an entirely new franchise? Well, in the case of Hideki Kamiya and Team Little Angels, we get one of the best action games of all time, and an iconic video game character with looks that kill and a kick-ass attitude. Of course I'm talking about Bayonetta, a series that gathered quite a following over the years and cemented its place in the gaming world. Today I will be looking at all three mainline Bayonetta games in chronological order. Buckle up, as it will be quite a long trip. Starting with the original game from 2009. Wow, what a fever dream. From the very first in-game cutscene, I was treated to perhaps the craziest over-the-top imagery that I have seen in a long time. Bayonetta cuts no corners when it comes to the presentation, knowing exactly what it is and what kind of audience it was catered towards. The story itself is pretty simple. A witch wakes up from a 500-year slumber, hunts angelic beings for a living, and tries to recover her memories while pursuing a lead on some black market sale of a special stone. But it's the wacky B-movie-esque dialogue and the delivery of that dialogue that make it stand out. Also, having arguably the best in-game choreography really helps to nail the presentation of every story-related cutscene, making you feel like the whole thing is really some kind of a bizarre movie.
You naughty little angels deserve a good spanking. Cheeky. Throwing me these cheap toys.
Don't worry about quality. I've got quantity. That was your last call. No more shots from me, Bayonetta.
As long as there's music, I'll keep on dancing.
Being a game made by the godfather of Devil May Cry, Hideki Kamiya, Bayonetta takes the best elements from those games, such as a bizarre yet cohesive story, devilishly stylish combos, tight combat, a variety of weapons to choose from, and a whole bunch of creatures to use these weapons on. But Bayonetta adds its own twist to the formula, and offers an experience unlike the one you can find in DMC, with a whole range of mechanics that complement the core gameplay loop incredibly well, adding more flavor to an already tasty meal. The combos are wilder, the different torture, punish, hair attacks, and yes, hair is a weapon, and not just a weapon but the entire suit of Bayonetta, all ending with spectacular looking climax finishers, really make the game stand out from Hideki Kamiya's previous works in the genre. And then there's the main heroine, or should I say anti-heroine? A leather-clad, overconfident kinky witch Bayonetta, who disposes of her enemies in style by pulling off moves that belong somewhere between classical ballet, contemporary dancing, and a strip club, with sprinkles of over-the-top sexual innuendos to complete the picture. She is loud, foul-mouthed, fearless, and always ready for action with her sleek high-heel guns and long hair waving in the air. This iteration of the character is probably my favorite out of the 3 games. The designers really nailed Bayonetta's look from the first try, in my humble opinion. It feels like the pace in Bayonetta is doubled compared to the DMC series, making it at times incredibly hard to control the action. I personally found the game tough, but fair. Like any good slasher, it requires you to learn the core mechanics and encourages the player to always experiment with the combos. Sure, it would be nice to see a full list of moves somewhere in order to actually know what you're doing, instead of mashing the different attack buttons in hopes of doing something right like I did. But I think this is how most newcomers have experienced the game during the first playthrough, so it's fine. And yes, Bayonetta clearly encourages multiple playthroughs in order to unlock all of the items, get all the secrets, and additional boss fights. Once you get the hang of the controls, the evade system, and how to dial in the combos, you'll get into this nice and almost blissful flow of dispatching different celestial creatures, and it will be done in style. Couple this with a stellar soundtrack and the visual effects that complement each other so well, and you get one hell of a ride with Bayonetta. I think that the game's OST will be in my playlist for quite some time now. It is incredible and fits the action and the characters really well. Bayonetta is not a perfect game by any means, at times being inconsistent with the difficulty, and some level design putting me in situations where I shouldn't have lost to what was practically a regular enemy, or clipped through the floor while attempting jumps in the motorcycle level. And some hard spots where I took more than 20 tries to get through really got on my nerves, and made me honestly hate the enemies that I was facing. But then the payoff for beating that one annoying section was so much more rewarding. And I should point out the obvious, it looks dated. When Bayonetta came out in 2009, it wasn't a particularly good looking game even at the time. Just your run-of-the-mill typical title of the 2000s, early 2010s. We were in the middle of the piss filter era, where every game looked grey as the pavement on a wet summer day, and Bayonetta really rolled back the years for me, being a prime example of that period in gaming. Every location, apart from a few levels near the end and the motorcycle driving experience, looked exactly the same. If you were to show me the gameplay of Bayonetta right now and ask me which chapter this is, I couldn't tell you even at gunpoint. The only colorful parts are Bayonetta herself, some key characters and enemies. The rest is grey. Really grey. I don't know if it was due to my overall enjoyment, stubbornness, borderline stupidity, all of those things combined, that I stayed up until 3 in the morning in order to finish off Bayonetta in roughly 2 days. Despite all of the shenanigans, the dull colors, the anger and frustration, something just kept me at the screen, longing to know what happens next. What crazy trick will the developers pull out of the hat in the next moment? The first Bayonetta was a bold move on the side of Platinum Games. A move that sparked a whole new franchise to life and gathered a cult-like following around an already established team of developers. And I'd say, despite its flaws, the game turned out to be special. Weird, totally out of control, not for everyone, but special.
The Lumen Sage. Now, where are my new best friends? I suppose one of them is an adult, so they should be okay. You know what I need? Some heels without guns. You don't mind if we make a quick stop, do you?
Do you know what day's coming up? Here I was shopping, minding my own business, then you show up and turn me into a damn porter. Seriously, Bayonetta, you still haven't paid me back for the car. Hey, whoa!
Now, is that any way to speak to an old friend? Besides, I did that job for you, for free, might add. Do I really have to tell everyone how you grabbed onto my leg sobbing like a...
Now, Bayonetta 2 is how you should make a sequel. A game better than its predecessor in almost every way imaginable. The guys at Platinum Games really did their homework and actually addressed the issues that the original had. The story is more interesting and cohesive, the graphics are better, the gameplay is more varied and enjoyable. I mean, I could end this part of the review right here and just say that Bayonetta 2 is my favorite of the three. But let's jump into the specifics.
For eternity in whatever circle of inferno you witches go to if you break the contract. Forget about it.
I quite like the story of the first Bayonetta, but more for its wackiness and spot-on lines delivery from every voice actor, who gave everything to make it the most over-the-top performance of all time. However, the plot itself was very ambiguous and took some time to get behind. Bayonetta 2 delivers a far more fledged-out storyline, while retaining all of the great goofiness of the original, giving us an even more awesome one-liners to remember till the end of times. I hope that wasn't too dramatic. This time the premise is much simpler. Due to an accident, which totally wasn't caused because Bayonetta's demon went out of control to the point where she had to kill him, Bayonetta's rival turned long-lost childhood friend from the first game, Jean, lost her life and her soul got separated from her body. There's a slim chance that Jean can be saved if Bayonetta reunites her soul with a device that would bring her back to life. So a heroine sets out to the gates of hell, because, as you all know too well, all witches go to hell, located at Fimbulwinter Mountain.
Hey, pussy motherfucker.
So, are we heading to Fimbulventer on a shopping trip for Mummy, little one?
On the way there, she meets up with a weird little magician who calls himself Loki. Loki is also on the way to the mountain, for reasons he doesn't quite know as he suffers from amnesia, just like Bayonetta in the first game. I don't want to spoil the whole story, but I will just say that a journey to bring back a friend from the dead eventually turns into a far grander adventure, filled with surprising revelations, time travel, and heartbreaking moments. I mean, Kamiya-san went all out and poured his heart and soul into the script, and it gave me emotions that I wasn't expecting from a game like this.
This is impossible!
Little one?
Where am I?
Bayonetta!
Get away from me!
Now, let's talk about the gameplay. My main criticism of the first Bayonetta game is that at times it felt too unforgiving, too brutal, and unfair. Each move had to be super precise, otherwise I instantly got punished for failing to string together a decent combo or time my evasion at the exact time when the enemy took a swing. And I don't really know if it was due to me losing that slasher game rust and getting the hang of things, or the tweaks made by the developers, but Bayonetta 2 played on the same difficulty felt a lot more enjoyable and easy to play. The controls remain tight as ever, and the combos take precise button mashing to pull off, but stringing them together and lashing out major damage seemed a lot easier. The dodges are more consistent, just a better rounded experience overall. It's as if Platinum Games realized that the original was a bit too harsh, and decided to make some minor tweaks, like more health and money drops, bigger inventory for items and so on, while keeping the core gameplay intact to make the best possible experience for both the veterans of the series, who can now enjoy the hard difficulty from the get-go, and newcomers looking to get into this world. The additional Muspelheim challenge levels have been updated too, and are not only fun to complete, but also are a great way to upgrade your health and magic bars. I really enjoyed completing them. Of course, as in the previous game, Bayonetta is all about that style. The endless dance on the razor's edge, balancing between flashy attacks, precise movement, and highly suggestive climax finishes. It felt awesome getting into this nice rhythm of dodging enemies' attacks, which accelerates witch time, a cool looking time freeze for a few seconds, beating them to death with a variety of weapons. This time Bayonetta gets plenty of toys to play with, and then finishing them off with some brutal looking special moves. And you get to fight on a huge demon horse and operate a mech. I mean, what else could you ask for, really? The graphics have received a ground update, and the new color palette was such a welcome change. I'd say that Bayonetta 2 is one of the best looking Nintendo Switch games that I've played. The locations are absolutely gorgeous, and are far more memorable than the ever-grey ones from the first game. Even the revisited old locations look way better in the sequel. The animations are smooth as silk, the reflections and particle effects are really good looking, the backdrops, the character models are far more detailed. I could go on and on, but it's better to see for yourself. My only complaint is the design of Bayonetta. It's just a preference thing, but I did like her look in the original game more. She still has that sass and class, but long hair looks better with her, in my humble opinion. Other than that, nothing to really complain about. Oh, no, one thing. The random attack that turned me into a child and gave my enemy a free one-hit kill, which led to my only death in the entire playthrough. That was annoying, let me tell you.
Was nice.
As in the original, the music in Bayonetta 2 is majestic and perfectly fits everything that is happening on the screen. It is at times more ambient and less intense than the first game, but this was done intentionally as the story and the action require a more complex soundtrack. Both OSTs are on the same level, each evoking different emotions and doing their part to bring the experience together. I highly recommend giving them a listen, even if you're not a fan of these kind of games.
You got more important shit to do than dealing with this monstrosity.
Bayonetta 2 is a perfect sequel to an amazing game, fixing all the issues of the original while adding more variety to the gameplay and really building upon the foundations laid in the first game. The lore building and story connection is impeccable, the visuals are spot on. This is definitely a game that I'd recommend to anyone who has a Nintendo Switch. It really makes me happy that Nintendo decided to back this game in the Wii U days. Maybe it was because they didn't really have any better first-party games in the pipeline at the time, and they were ready to fill that gap with any big release. But man, if this is true, what a happy coincidence. I will be sure to return to Bayonetta 2 sometime in the future.
So that's how that works. Well, not very romantic.
Got a nice glow about it, don't you think? As for its power, well, you don't need me to explain the finer points of fucking shit up, do you?
Little one!
Got them all lined up waiting to be saved, huh? Don't forget about your new toy.
The best way to describe Bayonetta 3 is overly ambitious. After the time travels of the second game, the developers went all out and decided to give us an actual multiverse of madness, thus practically retconning the events of the previous two installments. A bold move, I should say, but did it really pay off? I can't really make up my mind about this. On the one hand, the world of Bayonetta is so crazy and over the top that practically any event that you could think of wouldn't feel out of place. On the other hand, such decisions usually make huge gaping holes in even the most sensible plots, let alone this bag of nuts and bolts of a story.
Viola, go! You know what to do.
Sigurd! Bastard! Damn it!
Can't have you dying before I get my dough.
From the moment I booted up the game, things seemed odd in terms of the narrative and the characters. It felt to me as if I'm looking at actors who are playing the roles of Bayonetta and her pals, rather than them actually being those characters.
Newer town, huh? And here's a friendly hello. Definitely not a regular.
I do hope you haven't forgotten my order.
It's in the truck, ready to go.
And later on, when it turned out that I was playing as a quote-unquote variant of Bayonetta in the infinite number of universes, this made sense, of course, as all of them are sassy, incredibly cocky and seductive ladies in their own right. But each Bayonetta variant, as it will be for any other person, has her own traits based on the respective world the Bayonetta in question is from. I did like the fact that I got to visit many different worlds and the story being grander than ever before, without the restraints of taking place in 2 or 3 locations. The environments are incredibly good looking and interesting to traverse. It was cool to visit New York, Tokyo, China, Egypt, Paris and of course, the charming rift between worlds. But this does come at a price, as the story is as incoherent as ever in Bayonetta 3. It starts off pretty normal, if this word is applicable to the franchise at all, with our heroine fending off another attack of some outer world beings. But then we get introduced to Viola, a witch in training from another universe, who explains that the multiverse is in danger and Bayonetta has to stop the great evil called Singularity by collecting 5 gears and saving a man named Dr. Sigurd, who allegedly will help to stop the worlds from being devoured by this singularity.
You know, I really love New York, but ill-behaved tourists can be quite a pain.
And then the rest is as messy as it gets. I'd argue that Bayonetta 3 has the weakest writing out of the 3 games, and I can't really put my finger down on what's wrong.
Unleash it!
I guess it's just the fact that once you show that the once unique, one-of-a-kind character is nothing more than just a variant of the same thing with minimal differences, it totally kills the vibe and makes people care less about these characters. When I played the first 2 Bayonetta games, I looked at the sequel as a logical follow-up, a progressing story, and the evolution of the characters. Now you're telling me that the Bayonetta from the first game and from the sequel are 2 different people, and this third world one is another one? Give me a break.
Thing. Perhaps it's time for a crash diet.
Sure, it was cool to see them once again, but this move doesn't make sense at all. And don't even get me started on Viola and how annoying and boring she is. I mean, hey, at least her battle theme is nice. Oh, I didn't tell you, did I? You don't play as Bayonetta in about a quarter of the game. I mean, what's this game called again? Multiverse of Attractive Witches bearing the name Bayonetta Part 3? Yeah, sounds about right, I guess.
Sayonara.
At least the gameplay is still as awesome as it has ever been in the series, with the biggest variety of weapons and demons to use, adding many new gameplay features and set pieces never seen before in a Bayonetta game. There's this demon dance thing where you can summon a demon and control it on the battlefield, with each creature having unique attacks that mix well with the regular combos. The weapons are absolutely insane, offering many different options to dispose of your enemies. It all depends what's your cup of tea. The timeless 4-pistol combo, a flaming whip, a giant G-pillar that is a crossover between a hammer and a gun, and lots more. Also, if you have a save file from completing Bayonetta 1 and 2, you will be able to buy the pistols from the previous game for that sweet nostalgia trip, each with their own moveset.
Now's your chance. Seize off!
Oh, and remember when I said set pieces never before seen in a Bayonetta game? Well, boy oh boy, what a wild ride those are. You get to be a giant demon resembling Godzilla. You ride a huge train with cannons across the Great Wall of China in an alternate universe. Control a giant crab like you would do in the most historically accurate game of all time, Genji Days of the Blade. Isn't that awesome? If you are like me and the story didn't really impress you, at least stay for the gameplay. It is truly great.
I've killed Violet.
Sure, the violence was toned down a bit with these gooey enemies being made from some organic fluid, but this doesn't take anything away from the gameplay, apart from some suggestive finishers, like we had in the first two games. The combos are great to pull off, the timing is as tight as ever, and there's lots of variety, with some missions being a spy movie inspired 2D stealth platformers where you play as Jean, Bayonetta's best friend. Heck, even the Viola levels are serviceable, with a different approach to the combat, where you have to parry with a sword instead of dodging.
Why? Now, excuse me.
Everything related to audio in Bayonetta 3 is great. The soundtrack is marvelous, fitting each situation perfectly, with enough variety to both hype you up, or to make things feel more serious when needed. Another banger of a video game soundtrack going into my playlist, and I do tend to be picky when it comes to my music. Bayonetta 3 did not disappoint, combining new tracks with some of the old tunes from the previous installments, keeping that nice balance, and being as big a part of the game as ever. Most of the original cast of the voice actors returns to reprise their roles, and the ones who were unfortunately left out were replaced well. I honestly couldn't tell much of the difference between the voice of our lead character from the first two games and the third part. Everyone really did their best. Now, the graphics are a bit tough to rate, as yes, the game runs at the highest resolution the series has ever had on the Switch. Yes, the new environments and character models look pretty good, even on the big screen. And Platinum Games really seem to have mastered the mighty little Nintendo console, squeezing out all of the juices from the hardware. I mean, I've never heard the fans on my console go so loud ever before, to the point where I could actually hear them during my play sessions. And it shows that the Nintendo Switch isn't in desperate need of a proper hardware upgrade, as the developers did their best to offer an 810p resolution with a target 60 frames per second, but it does dip in times, and the resolution is variable, meaning that some scenes look outright bad and are really blurry. I still prefer the visuals of Bayonetta 2, to be honest. Bayonetta 3 is best described as overly ambitious, and this shows in almost every aspect, from the story that tried to be more than it possibly could be, to the absolutely crazy set pieces, gameplay mechanics and graphics that were at times too much for the Switch to handle. In the end, I was happy to see a conclusion to the trilogy, with a hint that there will be more games in the new generation, as the developers implied after the final credits rolled. Honestly, if it was certain that there will be no more Bayonetta games at all, I wouldn't be really upset, as the developers managed to try out so many things over the years that not every studio will try throughout its entire existence. And it's awesome that we have games like Bayonetta that are never afraid to step beyond the norms of game development and offer something different, both in terms of writing and gameplay. For me, this series has shown everything that I could have possibly thought of and way more. So regardless of how I feel about the creative decisions in the third game, I still enjoyed it, just as much as I enjoyed the other two parts. I would recommend anyone to give it a try, as you don't really have to play the original games to understand what's going on here. And I guess that's the beauty of it.
Seems like you're ready for the leash. Now, why don't you sit for mummy?
The Bayonetta series is an interesting take on the modern slasher genre, each of the games being a reflection of its respective time period, while never being too afraid to push the boundaries and try out some of the most outlandish things imaginable. Sure, this is definitely not a franchise for everyone, especially for very impressionable people, but it is a great experience for those who are willing to try something different, goofy, exploitive, and charming at the same time. As ridiculous as some things may be, when done right by a group of talented, passionate people, they really shine, and are ready to give as much as they can to a person willing to give them a chance. And, not gonna lie, I had a lot of fun with these games. It was a really wild ride that I will definitely remember for quite some time. And what do you think about these games? If you have played them, which one is your favorite? Let me know in the comments down below. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos like this one. Thank you, and have a pleasant day.